Wanderers, we're going to be covering 5 different settings today that you may not have turned on that will completely change around the way that you play the game. For some reason, most of these, especially the important ones, are always turned off when you first start the game. It happens to me every single time we hop onto the PTR. We're going to cover exactly why you want to turn these on, how to do it, and then what it's going to really affect. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get into our settings here. We're going to be looking at mostly gameplay settings right now. When you first start the game, this is what your screen is going to look like. The first setting that we're going to cover is going to be your advanced tooltip compare. Now, reading through the tooltip here, when comparing item tooltips, properties gained, lost, and changes to equipped skills will be displayed. When it's disabled, when comparing item tooltips, only the primary stat will be compared. So what does that mean? And why do you want to turn it on? When we come back into my items here, and we're going to take a look at these. When I look at this right here, this is my Ramaladni's. I have strength, maximum resources, critical strike damage, overpower damage. Now, how do I know that that's good? I'm wearing one right here. This is a different one. This one has a star on it. It has 157 strength, which is way different than this one here. This is 98 strength. How do I see the difference, and why is one higher than the other? When we go back and we actually turn on this setting, we go back into gameplay, we're going to turn on the advanced tooltip compare here. Once you save it on the bottom, that's going to enable it. If you look down here, this says hide comparison. It's going to be the shift key when you're on a mouse and keyboard. If I was to pick up my controller and I was to turn on the controller, the hide comparison button is going to be different. So if I click that, it's going to go away and it's going to turn back on. Now, as you can see here, now we're comparing the 2 different weapons. It's going to show that I'm going to lose a whole bunch of damage because that's going to show up in red. And then every other stat on here is also going to be red. So there's a couple different reasons for that. One of them is the item power. The item power is much lower on this weapon than it is on the weapon that I'm currently running. The higher item powers will always have better stats. But there is also going to be something that's going to be a little bit different. So let's take these 2 rings, for example. If I look at this Ring of Red Fear, 8.8% increase attack speed versus the other one that has 9% increase attack speed. So obviously there's going to be a range. So how do I know what that range is? That's where your next tip is going to come in. If we go back into our settings and we go back to gameplay and you go back to advanced tooltip information, display advanced information on tooltips such as item and property range, lucky hit chance on skills, and indicators such as whether modification is additive or multiplicative. Now, all of those are actually incredibly important, and they will all influence the way that you make your decisions for gear in the endgame. And this setting, for some reason, is turned off by default. Now, let's make sure we save it, and let's cover all of that stuff here. When we go back and we look at this, we now can see a range. I can see that my attack speed can go actually up to 10%. I'm actually on the lower end of this roll here. Each one of these lines will give me a range now. It also talked about multiplicative versus additive. What that means, if you click on the link in the description of this video, it will be a very brief overview of what additive versus multiplicative is, but there is a really, really big difference. Things like this plus to critical strike damage right here versus this multiplicative number right here, which has an X and this one has a plus, those make very, very big differences in how much damage you're going to do. The critical strike damage really doesn't matter all too much, but that multiplicative down on the bottom here, this makes a really big difference. So without this setting on, we wouldn't even know. Now, in the description of that setting, it talked about lucky hit chance. If you mouse over this lunging strike here, or you go into the skill tree on a controller and you go to your skills, you can see what the lucky hit chance is. I have a 77% lucky hit chance. Lucky hit chance is a little weird how it works. 77% of the time, I'm going to proc a lucky hit. And then on that lucky hit, then I have a chance to proc anything else that will actually proc on a lucky hit. If you look at my bludgeoning weapon here, on the lucky hit chance, I have a 15% chance to restore primary resources. That means that 77% of the time that I hit with lunging strike, I will proc a lucky hit. And then on that lucky hit, I have a 15% chance to proc that primary resource restore. But without this advanced tooltip information, I would have no idea how much of a chance I would have to proc that lucky hit. So this is a really, really important setting to turn on. Now, the advanced tooltip compare, where you go ahead and hit your shift key, this is something that will be a lot more utilized in the leveling process. While you're leveling, most things are going to be replaced very often, and it really helps if you pick something up and you see green, you put it on. If you don't see green, take it off. So those 2 tips are going to really help change the way that you gear your character in the early game as well as in the end game. We're traveling over to pits to cover our next tip. As you know, in Diablo 4, there are monsters everywhere. There's explosions on the ground. There's a lot going on. Now, how do you avoid looking away from your character to see all of those explosions and not die while still worrying about things like your health or even where your character is in the middle of the fray? When you go into your settings again, we're going to go back to gameplay. The first thing that we're going to cover is we're actually going to be covering display your own health. When you click on this button here, we also can display our own resources. We're going to hit save. And then when we go back into the game, it's actually going to put it right above our head here. So now I don't actually have to look down at my health globe. I don't have to look down at my fury. I can see all of it right here on the screen in front of me. So now if I'm getting attacked, I've kind of lost my character. I don't even know where he is. There's stuff going on. There's visual effects. So how do we change that? That's going to be a really important one to keeping you alive. When you go back into your settings here, we're going to go back to gameplay. We're going to scroll down. We're going to come to your character visibility. You can actually add highlights to your characters here. So we're going to put highlight here. You can pick which color you want. I'm going to leave mine as a bright neon yellow because that's really, really easy to see. When we go to save changes and we go back into the game, now I have a bright neon yellow around me so I can see my character. I have the health displayed above my head so I know where I am. I know how much life I have. And then when we go back into this, if you wanted to, you can add additional highlights around it. You just select the additional highlights, and then you can pick whatever color you want to pick. Whatever one is going to work best for you, you can accept and you can save changes, and then you'll see additional highlights around you as well. Now, I like to have just the one, so we're going to leave it at just the one, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like when you run through a group of monsters now versus when you had it before. Now you can see your character. You see where your life is. You know where your character is going to be. It makes it a whole lot easier. Now, if you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, this next tip is going to be for you. See this cursor? It is nice, big, and it is bright, and it's red. You can actually turn those on by going into your accessibility menu, and you're going to come right down to visuals. Now, this doesn't change unless you save it. So we can change the size. So if I want to go back down to small, if you didn't want to see it on your screen, you hit save. Now it's a really, really small. You can remove the highlighted contrast, hitting save there. And you can really see the difference if you were to add it back to the large setting. And then when we swap this to high contrast, you get to see the big difference here. So now that will allow me to see where my player is. It will allow me to see where my mouse is. And then we don't really have to worry too much about dying to explosions because I never actually have to look anywhere else. I can just constantly focus on the screen, see where my character is, and see where my mouse is. So these settings will absolutely 100% help keep you alive and keep you safe when you're running things like the pits, you're in the infernal hordes where there is just a lot of stuff going on around you. Tip number 5, and we do have a bonus one for you right after this, but stick around for that. Number 5 is going to be your HUD. Now, with this game here, a lot of the time you're going to end up spending time looking at the mini-map because you're trying to figure out where your pin is or where the arrows are. And if you don't know what a pin is, if you come to your map and you just click right here with your right mouse button or on the controller, it will tell you exactly which button to do right along the bottom. You see where it says pin location, you just click that, and then that's going to pin the location for you. So there's a lot of different ways to do all of these different settings. When you have that pin, so I've now added a pin to my map, how do I avoid looking at this mini map here to figure out where I want to go? When we go back in, and we're going to go back to gameplay settings, and you're going to go all the way down to the bottom, we have a HUD compass here. Now, if you want to auto pin quests, there's a little bonus for you. You absolutely can. Anytime you take a new quest, let's say the seasonal quest completes, it's going to take you right to the next one, automatically pin it on the map for you. But what we're going to be looking at today is the HUD compass. This will put a HUD arrow on the screen for you that will point to where your pin is. So you just have to follow this, and now you can actually watch the game and see exactly what's going on around you. Let's say that you're in the very beginning of the game, you're looking for herbs, and you want to find herb bundles, but you don't want to look away from the mini-map so that you know exactly where you're going. This is going to be a really great option for you as well. When you go back into the gameplay settings at the very bottom here, you can have a high contrast arrow if you want, and you can pick the different colors. So if you wanted something like bright red, like my mouse here, we just hit save, and now we have a bright red arrow, so you can change around the way that that works. It's really fun. It makes it so that you can see the game, because this is a really, really beautiful game. So this is going to be a really great way to get yourself to your destinations without having to stare at the mini map. Now, we talked about a little bonus tip. For me, and this is going to be for anybody that's playing on a mouse and keyboard, I cannot play without a force move button. And there are a lot of different options for force move out there. If you go back into your controls here and you come down, force move right here will allow you to move your character cursor location without attacking monsters or interacting with objects. So this will allow you to move anywhere that your mouse cursor is at. I love to play it on W because I can just keep one hand on the keyboard and I can just move the mouse around if I need to, and that is how I use the directional thing. If you see on the bottom here, when you're actually clicking on the mouse, there's going to be directions and they're going to see the little pings on the ground. With the keyboard and the set to W, this is how it looks. Now, a lot of people do like to use this setting. This is a very, very popular one. You can click here and then you can set it to what would be your mouse wheel. A lot of people really love to use the mouse wheel as it, when what it looks like is going to be this right here. And this is why a lot of people like to use it. You can use an infinite scroll mouse and you just spin it and it'll just keep on moving you all around the map. This is a very, very popular way to use it because now as you're using your abilities, it's still going to keep on attacking and you can still keep on moving. So you can figure out how to play this way if that's a preference for you. Then you just stop the mouse wheel and then you stop moving. That's all I got for you today. If you have tips that you use that people need to turn on those settings, make sure you leave them in the comments. This way we can highlight it in the next video that we do about different settings that people should be using. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you share it with your friends. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm live every night. I'd love it if you stopped by, said hi, theory crafted with me. Catch you on the clip side.